Hi, friends. I hope you're having a great start to your day or evening whenever you're watching this. My name is Danielle, and I run a blog called parentingandpapercrafts.com, a blog where motherhood and card making intersect. This channel is meant to complement my blog and hopefully will offer you loads of inspiration or, at a minimum, brighten your day. So I wanted to thank you first. Thank you for stopping by. It's always appreciated. Today's video is a continuation of my video when I first tried gel plates. In that video, I talked about the gel plates, the technique, and showed all of the backgrounds I made with that first attempt. Now in this video, I'm going to follow up to share how I turned those backgrounds, or one of those backgrounds, into a card. And this one is more of a masculine card idea. So in addition to the products that you've seen me already use for the background, to create that background, I'm going to be using a rectangle die, blue cardstock, and Lawn Fawn ink, I believe. I'll show it on the video, which all coordinates with that blue color scheme. So keep watching. Okay, so I'm going to be using Lawn Fawn's Premium Dye Ink. Blue Jay is the color. I'm using My Favorite Things Dynamics Blueprints number 29, coordinating blue cardstock, and here's the background of the that I created using the gel plates. I'm going to be using a scrap piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to be using an old stamp set I've used a few times. It's from my favorite, close to my heart, Stamps of Approval Occasions. The products I use and other details will be listed in my coordinating blog post, which I'll have a link in the description of this video, so look out for that. So I used the rectangle stitch from the My Favorite Things Blueprints Dynamics to trim down the background panel. The blue cardstock is trimmed down to create a border for that panel. I use a file to lightly sand down and smooth the edges. That's what you saw me doing there. Then I adhere the background panel to the border. The border is going to leave about 1/4 inch on all sides. Generally, when I try to, and you'll see me do this in a second, I'm going to try to get good placement when I adhere that background panel to the border. And normally I look at the upper left, first the upper left and then the upper right corners for an even placement. And that's what you see me do there. And most time that works. In a few seconds or minutes, you'll see where it goes wrong. So I get good placement and I feel good about it and I move on. Next, I'm going to fold my card base. It's an A2 standard size. I use my Score Buddy for that. Now here's where I'm going to adhere that panel to the card base. And I do the same method that I use always. I look at the upper left and then the upper right hand corners. And I try to look for good placement. But when I adhere it to the card base, it's off center. So I use my Cricut spatula to remove it. And then I try that placement again. Again, most time that works. And if it doesn't, I use that spatula, depending upon the adhesive I use. You could opt to use liquid adhesive, so you have a little bit more wiggle room before it dries to move it around, and that may be an easier process. But today I use my permanent adhesive, and I had to just do a workaround for that. All right, so next I'm going to be using the Friend stamp from the Close to My Heart stamp set. And I stamp it onto that white piece of cardstock that I had around. I'm going to use the Lawn Fawn Premium Dye Ink. Blue Jay is the color. I use my Misty stamping tool so I can get a good impression. I stamp it a couple of times for that. I don't think there are matching dies to this stamp set. If there are matching die sets, I don't have them. So off camera, I trim down that sentiment. And on camera, I'll show you how I cut the border for that leftover, using the leftover blue cardstock. And I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to be using my long pair of scissors because I find that that cuts easier. It's minimal cuts. And it helps get me a straighter line. Right now, you're just watching me try to get a good impression of that stamp sentiment. So here's where I take it off camera, I trim it down, and then I'll show you how I create that border. So I use repositional adhesive just to tack it on there, and I use my long scissors here just for minimal cuts, and I find that I get a straighter line when I do that. So there's one, and then a second cut, two, and then the third cut. And when I originally put it on this panel, I kind of aligned it where it would on a straight line, so I can have less cuts. And there I have a border, and that border is less of 1/8 of an inch, but it's enough so I can see like the blue. It won't be a white background, so it worked. I'm going to be using my dimensionals foam dimensionals to add dimension. Sorry, to add dimension. And I don't know about you, but often, and I try to cut this out of the video, I stare at my panel just to look to see if that's the design I really want, if I settle on it, but I cut out those seconds or up to a minute sometimes, where I just look at the panel just to see if it's what if I'm going to go through my original thought process. So that was a little bit of a hesitation there. I thought I trimmed it all or cut it all out of the video, but I didn't. So anyway, I adhere that sentiment onto the card base or the card panel, which is adhered to the card base. And now I'm just doing a little embellishment. I'm adding a little shimmer to the word friend. I think I only do the word friend, and then there's an image right on the bottom, like that little sun rays. It looks like the sun is rising. I think that's what it is. But anyway, I add a little bit to the rays on that image. I use my Wink of Stella for the larger areas. Yeah, the pen I use for the small font, and then the Wink of Stella I can use with the large font. Oh, by the way, this is a premium dye ink, so you want to make sure that the ink is completely dry before you start adding Wink of Stella, because it activates that ink and you can get like smudges. And you'll see me notice that, and I make a little correction because it wasn't that much of a smudge, but I'll make a little correction using my white gel pen. And I believe it's over the letter F or R, but you'll see me play around with that a little bit. But just make sure each of your layers are dry before you add the embellishments. All right, and I think that is the end. So thank you so much for visiting me and watching me put together my card. I hope you get something out of it. I hope you like the card. If you do, be sure to leave me a comment below. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I always appreciate that. Thank you again for visiting, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.